From Alaska Teen Media Institute, this is Podcast in Place, Youth Stories from Quarantine, a series about youth in Alaska during the COVID-19 pandemic. We're bringing you stories, interviews, and audio diaries from teenagers and young adults stuck at home without anything else to do. I'm ATMI producer Ormund Alaois, recording this on an iPad in my house, since the main ATMI studio is closed for the time being. Earlier this year, Jose Carter was working for a company that did catering in an oil field in Pecos, Texas. He'd been there for almost a year and a half when he was laid off due to the pandemic. Jose then returned to Alaska where his family lives to try and find a new job. Among Jose's family is his daughter, ATMI senior producer, Daisy Carter. Daisy sat down with her dad to talk about the difficulties of both working and looking for work during a pandemic. They spoke on September 13, 2020.
What was an average shift like before quarantine?
Our shift, it was it was 12 hours, 7 days a week, 4 weeks on, 2 weeks off. My shift, it was for 9:30 in the morning to 9:30 at night.
When did you notice that things were changing in the camp due to the pandemic?
Okay, that was when I took 2 weeks off. I took about 10 days off for right before the holidays. Then I went on vacation with my daughters. And then when I came back to work, it was December 23rd. And when I left, it was like a 600 people staying in the camp. And when I came back 10 days later, it was only 200. And then by Christmas, we lost about another 100. And by New Year, we had only about 75 people. And then everything starts slowing down. And companies start closing down because they don't want to take, the employees, they don't want to take a risk to get contaminated with the virus. So people closed companies, people left, a lot of people quit. And then everything started going downhill like middle of February.
Did your bosses or did any supervisors talk to you during the pandemic, kind of coach you on what procedures to do or anything like that?
Yes, definitely. I mean, we had our meetings 2 times a week, talking about our to be safe. I mean, how to try to keep everybody safe and all the employees, all the guests that stay in our camp. I mean, it was we had 2 meetings every week, and we have to follow a lot of procedures the company that were given to us.
Did you have to wear any masks or protective gear when you were working?
Yes, all the time. We used to wear a mask and gloves all day.
What was kind of the atmosphere amongst the workers during this whole pandemic? Like you mentioned that it went from a lot of people to a little bit of people really quickly. What was kind of the atmosphere around those people?
Well, the atmosphere was a lot of people that just they were getting anxious because we were busy, working 12 hours, and then they start cutting on hours, and then we went to 10 hours. And then we went to 9 hours, so we started hurting for income. There's a lot of people that they just expect, they're there just to make money, and they expect to get a full paycheck, and we were not getting any of that full paycheck. So people start really concerned about that they were not getting paid the same amount of money that we were making a month and a month and a half before that. So a lot of people, they decide to leave, to quit. Some of the people they were getting depressed because for the reason of that, all the news and all the people that were getting contagious and people dying, and so it was people they were getting depressed.
What was the process like, you leaving that job?
I was there for my last hitch that I was there. It was 32 weeks. The company, they don't want me to come back here to Alaska because to be safe. And then on the top of that, it was the quarantine. If I was coming here to Alaska, I have to do 2 weeks here, and then if I go back to Texas, I have to be doing like a 2 weeks quarantine too. So the company decided not to let us go, in our time off. And everything started, it's just slowing down. I mean, for a while, it was just only 40, 50 people, just, a day that we were, feeding people, only about 40 people a day. So the company, of course, start doing a lot of cutting, a lot of stuff, Even they start charging us rent, which is there. We then did, because it was that bad. So back in June, like I was one of the top paid in the kitchen. I guess they decided to let me go, so they let me off. And then I came back to Alaska, and I started applying for started working in the Prudhoe Bay. That I have a previous working there for about 4 years. So I was in employment for about 2 months before I get back to Prudhoe Bay. So today I'm working in Prudhoe Bay.
Can you talk a little bit about what it was like having to go through the process of getting unemployed, and then as you mentioned that you kind of stayed unemployed for about 2 months, but can you kind of talk a little bit about what it was like trying to find a job, during a pandemic?
Yes. First of all, I apply for them, for the unemployment. It's a process. It takes about 4, 5, 6 weeks before, they give it, that employment. It was just, it was a little tough, it was a little tight money, because I was not having income at all. And I was looking for work. I was looking for work here in town too. In the meantime, but it was nothing. It was open too, and I work in the food industry, and a lot of restaurants that were closed. I have a couple interviews for janitorial, and they just there was not much going on with the janitorial too. They had their own people to work. So it was a little tough, and finally after 2 months, the company that I used to work at, which is Nana Corporation here from Native Corporation here in Anchorage, they called me back, and they offered me a job. But it was days that I was a little stressed. I was I never, when I was doing quarantine, I was a little kind of desperate, because I never stay home like that. It was something new for me, and I never, for the last 32 years that I've been working here in the United States, I always work. I never stay home. It was always work. So it was a little different.
Well, from my point of view, it was those 2 months were desperately needed because, like my dad said, he was in Texas for 32 weeks. So I hadn't seen him in a long time. So I thought that time was nice, to spend with him. And but now I'm happy that that he got this job, and I think everything's all good. Do you want to add anything else, like any other experiences or anything that you're grateful for?
No, that's it. I'm just grateful to went back to work, and happy couple right now. Get back to work, and I have 2 beautiful daughters.
Thank you, Papi.
That was ATMI senior producer Daisy Carter speaking with her father, Jose Carter. You've been listening to Podcast in Place, Youth Stories from Quarantine from Alaska Teen Media Institute. Our show's theme music was composed by Devin Treckenghost. Stay tuned for more stories from quarantined youth. You can find these stories at alaskateenmedia.org, where we have included resources for youth during quarantine as part of a partnership with the State of Alaska Division of Behavioral Health. Alaska Teen Media Institute is based in Anchorage, Alaska. We would like to acknowledge the Dena'ina people whose land we work on. Many thanks to supporters of our podcast, including the Anchorage Museum at Rasmussen Center, United Way of Anchorage, the Alaska Humanities Forum, and the National Endowment for the Humanities. The views expressed in this program do not necessarily represent the views of the National Endowment for the Humanities or other sponsors. Thanks to our listeners who contribute to our programs and help us leverage additional funds and grants. If you'd like to support Youth Voices in Anchorage and help keep our podcast going, you can donate to our organization by going to alaskateenmedia.org and clicking Donate. Also on our website, you can learn more about what our organization does, listen to past episodes of our podcast, or find out how you too can get involved. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. For Alaska Teen Media Institute, I'm Ormund. Alaois. Thanks for listening. Stay safe out there. We'll get through this together.